She ghosted me for a better option, abroad, and I tracked her Instagram to see her begging for likes while my travel vlogs with a new flame hit 1 million views. Then came her DMs saying miss you. I thought I was being the perfect boyfriend when I planned that elaborate farewell dinner at Portland's most exclusive rooftop restaurant. I'd been with Natalie for 3 years, and she'd been living in my downtown loft for 18 months, so when she got this temporary work assignment in Barcelona, I wanted to send her off right. I spent weeks planning every detail, calling in favors to get reservations at Altitude, the place with the 2-month waiting list and panoramic city views that stretched from Mount Hood to the Pacific. The cost was half a month's freelance income as a video editor specializing in travel documentaries, but I figured this was a once-in-a-lifetime send-off for the woman I loved. I even invited her 4 closest friends including Zoe, her college roommate who'd become like a sister to her, thinking it would make the night more meaningful and memorable. Natalie worked as a digital marketing specialist for a tech startup, always talking about global opportunities and international expansion, so this Barcelona assignment felt like her big break. I was genuinely excited for her, even though it meant 6 months apart from someone I'd been planning to propose to next Christmas. What I didn't expect was to become the evening's entertainment in the worst possible way. We were halfway through our $100 per person appetizers when Natalie started talking about her colleagues who work for major corporations abroad, and somehow that conversation turned into a public evaluation of my life choices. "Ben's still editing travel videos for small tourism companies," she said with this dismissive laugh that cut right through me. "He has this amateur YouTube travel channel with only 15,000 subscribers. It's honestly embarrassing when I have to explain what my boyfriend does for work to successful people." Zoe shifted uncomfortably in her seat and tried to change the subject, but Natalie was just getting started. "My friends back home date venture capitalists and international consultants, people with real careers and actual ambition. Sometimes I wonder what I'm even doing here in Portland with someone who thinks filming local nature trails counts as a legitimate career path." The table went completely silent except for the distant sounds of downtown traffic and the soft jazz playing through the restaurant speakers. I sat there holding my wine glass, watching the woman I'd spent 3 years building a life with systematically dismantle every aspect of my existence in front of the people who mattered most to her. "This Barcelona opportunity is exactly what I need," she continued, completely oblivious to the damage she was causing. "Working with real professionals who understand global markets and international business instead of someone who thinks creating content about Oregon hiking spots is going to lead somewhere meaningful." Her friend Sarah tried to interrupt with something about dessert, but Natalie powered through. "I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself if you're settling for mediocrity just because it's comfortable, right?" I quietly signaled for the check, my hands surprisingly steady despite feeling like my entire world was collapsing. The bill came to $420 that I couldn't really afford but paid anyway because that's what you do when someone destroys your dignity in public and you still have enough self-respect left to handle the situation with class. I stood up slowly, put my credit card away, and looked at Natalie one last time. "I hope Barcelona gives you everything you're looking for," I said, then walked out of that restaurant knowing I'd never see her again. The next morning, I woke up in my empty loft feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, but something strange happened when I opened my laptop to edit a client project. Natalie had left her cloud storage logged in on my computer, something I'd completely forgotten about until her Barcelona photos started syncing automatically to my desktop. At first I tried to ignore them, but then I saw the timestamps and my blood went cold. The romantic photos with some Spanish guy named Sergio dated back 3 months, weeks before her Barcelona assignment had even been announced at work. There were screenshots of romantic messages between them, conversations about him helping her find an apartment in Barcelona, and discussions about their future together that made it clear she'd been planning this move as a permanent escape route, not a temporary work assignment. The messages revealed that Sergio was a marketing director she'd met during a supposed business conference in Seattle, except now I realized it had been a romantic getaway disguised as professional development. "Can't wait until you're here permanently," one of his messages read. "This long-distance thing is killing me, but soon we'll have our real life together." Her responses were even worse. "I just need to figure out how to end things with Ben without looking like the bad guy." Maybe if I make him break up with me first, I won't have to deal with the guilt. The entire farewell dinner suddenly made perfect sense. She'd orchestrated that public humiliation specifically to make me walk away, so she could leave for Barcelona with a clear conscience and tell everyone back home that I'd abandoned her during her big career opportunity. I sat there staring at these messages for probably an hour, feeling this weird mixture of devastation and relief wash over me. The woman I'd planned to marry had been systematically dismantling our relationship for months while planning her new life with someone else, and I'd been too trusting to see it coming. Instead of wallowing in self-pity or sending angry texts that she'd probably show to Sergio for a good laugh, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I grabbed my camera equipment, drove to the Oregon coast, and started filming. Not for a client, not for my small YouTube channel, but for myself. I spent 3 days at Cannon Beach processing everything that had happened, talking to my camera like it was a therapist, documenting the raw reality of discovering that someone you love has been living a double life. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like, I said to the camera while waves crashed behind me. But finding out that someone planned your humiliation months in advance, that's a different kind of pain entirely. The footage was rough, unpolished, completely unlike the professional travel content I usually created, but it felt real in a way that my carefully edited tourism videos never had. When I posted it as a 3-part series called Healing in Nature, Processing Betrayal, I expected maybe a few hundred views from my small subscriber base. Instead, something unexpected happened. The comments section exploded with people sharing their own stories of emotional manipulation and planned betrayals, viewers who connected with the raw honesty of watching someone work through genuine pain instead of pretending everything was fine. 6 weeks after Natalie's departure, my life took a turn I never could have predicted. The Healing in Nature series had struck some kind of nerve with viewers, and when a major travel influencer with 3 million followers shared my content with a caption about authentic storytelling versus manufactured lifestyle posts, everything changed overnight. I went from 15,000 subscribers to over 200,000 in 2 weeks, with messages pouring in from people who said my honest approach to processing heartbreak had helped them through their own difficult situations. The timing couldn't have been more perfect because I'd just been contacted about a collaborative project filming endangered species in Olympic National Park, and that's where I met Emma. She was 26, a wildlife photographer from Vancouver with this incredible ability to capture animals in their natural habitat without disturbing their behavior. We were both there working on different projects when the park rangers suggested we combine our efforts since I needed wildlife footage and she was documenting wolf pack recovery for a conservation organization. Our first conversation happened around a campfire after a long day of filming, and I found myself talking to someone who actually understood the artistic side of nature documentation instead of just seeing it as content creation. "Your healing series really resonated with me," she said while adjusting her camera settings for night photography. "My ex used to say that wildlife photography was just an expensive hobby, that I should focus on wedding photography if I wanted to make real money." I laughed, recognizing the familiar sting of having your passion dismissed by someone who's supposed to support you. "Let me guess, he thought you should be more practical and settle down into something safe and boring?" "Exactly. He couldn't understand why I'd rather spend weeks in the wilderness documenting animal behavior than taking posed photos of people pretending to be happy." There was something immediately comfortable about Emma, the way she talked about her work with genuine passion instead of treating it like a stepping stone to something more profitable or prestigious. Over the next week of filming together, I discovered that her knowledge of animal behavior perfectly complemented my storytelling abilities, and our collaborative footage was unlike anything either of us had created alone. Meanwhile, I'd been keeping tabs on Natalie's social media presence through a mutual friend's account, and the contrast between her Barcelona experience and my unexpected success was becoming impossible to ignore. Her Instagram posts showed her struggling with basic Spanish phrases, looking lost and overwhelmed in photos where she was clearly trying to project sophistication and worldly success. The engagement on her posts had dropped dramatically, from hundreds of likes and dozens of comments to maybe 30 likes and a handful of supportive messages from friends back home who felt obligated to respond. Her attempts at lifestyle content looked forced and inauthentic compared to the local Barcelona influencers she was obviously trying to emulate, and you could see the desperation creeping into her captions as she begged followers to share her posts and help her grow her international lifestyle brand. 3 months after meeting Emma, our collaborative work had transformed both of our careers in ways neither of us had imagined possible. Our joint travel vlogs featuring wildlife conservation efforts had exploded across social media, reaching 500,000 subscribers and attracting sponsorship deals worth $180,000 annually from major outdoor gear companies and conservation organizations who wanted to partner with creators producing authentic environmental content. What started as a chance meeting in Olympic National Park had evolved into both a thriving business partnership and something much deeper on a personal level. Emma moved to Portland in November, bringing her rescue dog Riley and immediately transforming my sterile downtown loft into a warm, creative home filled with her photography equipment and the kind of genuine life I'd never experienced with Natalie. I spent weeks renovating the space into a proper editing studio where we could work together, installing professional lighting for her photography and upgrading my video equipment with the money we were earning from our conservation documentaries. Watching Emma work was completely different from anything I'd experienced before. She'd spend hours patiently waiting for the perfect shot of a wolf pack or eagle family, understanding that authentic wildlife footage couldn't be rushed or manufactured for social media consumption. "This is what real partnership looks like," she said one evening while we edited footage from our latest project documenting salmon runs in Alaska. "We're building something meaningful together instead of one person just taking from the other." The contrast with my previous relationship couldn't have been more obvious, and through our mutual friend network, I was getting regular updates about how drastically different Natalie's Barcelona experience was turning out to be compared to her grand plans. Zoe had mentioned that Natalie's supposed dream job was actually an unpaid internship that had ended after 3 months when the startup company folded, leaving her scrambling to find any kind of work that would let her stay in Spain legally. Even more satisfying was learning that Sergio, the marketing director she'd thrown away our relationship for, had been publicly dating a local Spanish fashion blogger named Catalina for months while apparently stringing Natalie along as nothing more than a casual side relationship. Emma found the whole situation darkly amusing from an anthropological perspective. She destroyed a stable, loving relationship for someone who was never serious about her in the first place, she observed while uploading our latest conservation video that would eventually get over 2 million views. "That's not bad luck. That's poor judgment and karma working exactly as it should." By spring, the difference between my thriving new life and Natalie's Barcelona disaster had become absolutely stark, and the updates I was getting through our mutual friend network painted a picture of someone whose grand international adventure had turned into a complete nightmare. Her attempts to launch a Barcelona lifestyle blog had failed spectacularly when her content appeared forced and manufactured compared to actual local influencers who understood the culture and language, and her follower count had plummeted from 8,500 to 3,200 as people discovered her fake persona and started unfollowing in droves. The final blow to her Spanish fantasy came when Sergio made his relationship with Catalina officially public through a romantic Instagram announcement that featured professional photos of them at exclusive Barcelona locations, with captions in Spanish that made it clear they'd been together for over a year. Natalie had been nothing more than a temporary distraction for someone who was already in a committed relationship, and she destroyed her stable life in Portland for someone who never considered her more than a casual hookup when his real girlfriend was busy. Meanwhile, Emma and I were experiencing the kind of success that neither of us had dared to dream about when we first met in Olympic National Park. Our 3-part documentary series about wolf conservation in Alaska had become trending content across multiple platforms, garnering over 3 million views combined and leading to a $500,000 deal with a major streaming platform that wanted to commission a full-length documentary about our conservation work. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Natalie was struggling to get 30 likes on her desperate lifestyle posts, our authentic content about environmental protection was reaching millions of viewers who genuinely cared about the message we were sharing. "Your ex really had no idea what she was walking away from, did she?" Emma said one evening while we celebrated signing the streaming deal. "She saw your 15,000 subscribers as embarrassing, but she never understood that you were building something real that would eventually reach millions of people." The validation was sweet, But what felt even better was knowing that I'd found someone who supported my ambitions instead of tearing them down, someone who saw potential where Natalie had only seen failure. Through Zoe, I learned that Natalie had been desperately asking about me, trying to gather information about my success through their mutual friend network and apparently spending hours watching my collaborative videos with Emma while living in a cramped Barcelona apartment with 3 Spanish roommates who barely tolerated her presence. She keeps asking if you're really making money from YouTube now, Zoe told me during a coffee meeting in Portland. I think seeing your success is eating her alive, especially since she's working at a tourist information center for minimum wage and can barely afford to stay in the city she thought would make her sophisticated and worldly. The desperation really started showing when Natalie created fake social media accounts to monitor my success after I'd blocked her on all platforms, something I discovered when Emma noticed the same anonymous profile viewing our Instagram stories repeatedly and clicking through every single post we'd made about our documentary deal and conservation work. Through these fake accounts, Natalie was watching my million-view travel vlogs with Emma while living in that cramped Barcelona apartment, working at a tourist information center for minimum wage, and apparently obsessing over every detail of the life she'd walked away from. The messages started coming through our mutual friends first, with Zoe reluctantly passing along Natalie's increasingly desperate attempts to reconnect. She wants me to tell you that she made a terrible mistake, Zoe said during our last coffee meeting. She keeps saying that what you two had was real love and that career ambitions shouldn't matter more than genuine connection. The irony was absolutely delicious considering she'd been the one who'd claimed I lacked ambition and embarrassed her in front of successful people. When indirect contact through friends didn't work, Natalie created a completely new Instagram account under a fake name and started DMing me directly, messages that revealed she'd been following my content obsessively and knew intimate details about my relationship with Emma, including our engagement announcement video that had generated 2.3 million views and thousands of congratulatory comments from viewers who'd followed our love story from the beginning. "I saw your engagement post," one of her messages read. "I know I have no right to say this, but I can't stop thinking about what we had together. What we built over 3 years was real, Ben. Don't you think our history means something more than whatever this new thing is with that photographer girl?" The fact that she couldn't even use Emma's name spoke volumes about her mindset, and her follow-up messages became increasingly unhinged as she revealed just how much she'd been stalking our social media presence. "I've watched every single video you've made since Barcelona," another message read. "I can see how successful you've become, how much money you must be making from all those sponsorship deals and that streaming platform documentary. I always believed in your potential, even when I was scared about our future together." The revisionist history was breathtaking in its audacity, but what really got to me was her final desperate plea. "I know I hurt you, but I was young and confused about what I wanted from life. Now I see that security and stability matter more than excitement and adventure. You were right about everything, and I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me for someone who was just using me." I initially considered responding just out of curiosity about how far she'd sink into delusion, but Emma wisely counseled me to maintain my boundaries and not give Natalie the validation she was desperately seeking. "She's only interested now because your success is undeniable," Emma pointed out while we planned our next conservation project. "If you were still struggling with 15,000 subscribers, she'd never have looked back." Emma and I got engaged on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean during a sunrise shoot for our upcoming documentary series, and when I posted our engagement announcement video, it became our most successful content ever, with viewers celebrating our authentic love story that had grown from my healing journey after betrayal. The comments section was filled with people who'd been following our relationship development through our collaborative conservation work, and many mentioned how refreshing it was to see genuine partnership instead of the manufactured romance content that dominated social media. The streaming platform documentary about our wildlife conservation efforts premiered 6 months later to critical acclaim, establishing us as respected voices in environmental travel content and leading to speaking engagements at conservation conferences across the country. We were building both professional success and personal happiness from the foundation that Natalie's betrayal had inadvertently created, and I couldn't help but appreciate the cosmic justice of it all. Natalie's final desperate attempt to insert herself back into my life came when she showed up at my old coffee shop in downtown Portland during what turned out to be a brief visit home, probably hoping to orchestrate some kind of coincidental encounter that would force me to acknowledge her presence and maybe open the door to further contact. Unfortunately for her theatrical plans, Emma and I were in New Zealand at the time, filming our honeymoon travel series that would eventually document our exploration of conservation efforts in remote locations around the South Island. We were completely unreachable and unbothered by whatever drama she was trying to create back in Portland, focused instead on building our new life together and creating content that actually mattered to our audience of environmental enthusiasts and conservation supporters. Through Zoe, I learned that Natalie had returned to Portland permanently after her Barcelona adventure imploded completely, and she was now working at a social media marketing agency for $38,000 annually, a significant step down from the international marketing career she'd envisioned when she left me for supposedly bigger and better opportunities. She'd rented a small studio apartment in a less desirable part of the city and was still posting occasionally on Instagram about how her Barcelona experience had been life-changing growth, and exactly what I needed to discover my true self, the kind of inspirational caption nonsense that fooled absolutely nobody who knew the real story behind her return home. The last update I received was that she'd started dating some 24-year-old barista who worked at a trendy coffee shop and seemed impressed by her stories about living in Europe, someone young and naive enough to believe her carefully edited version of events without understanding that she'd destroyed a stable relationship for what turned out to be a complete fantasy. Emma and I were in New Zealand planning our next conservation documentary series when I got word about Natalie's latest relationship development, and we laughed about it over dinner at a restaurant overlooking Milford Sound. "She's finally found someone at her actual level," Emma observed while reviewing footage from our day documenting penguin colonies. "Someone who doesn't know enough about real relationships to recognize her patterns of behavior." As we sat there planning our future projects and enjoying the kind of genuine partnership I'd never experienced before, I realized that Natalie had actually done me the biggest favor possible by showing her true character when she did, before I'd wasted any more years building a life with someone who saw relationships as transactional arrangements rather than genuine emotional connections built on mutual respect and shared goals.